I remember first I was, I think it was Force Science Institute did an article many years ago that showed there's a hesitation factor on the time where police officers, specifically white cops, dealt with using force on black suspects or white suspects, and it was more specifically the firing of their pistols in the line of duty on deadly force scenarios. What they showed, and I'm paraphrasing very drastically, was that could have been 1/10 of a second, could have been a whole second, but that in large, the definitive proof that this study showed was that police hesitate more, a greater length of time, discharging their firearms when it came to shooting at black subjects than it does to white subjects. And then there's this is, I'm going to play this really quickly. This was a study that was done, I think this was about 5 years ago, by this man that proves that there is no inherent racism in law enforcement, or what he found.
World's biggest data nerd. So I said, this is going to be the easiest paper I ever write. I'm going to go get some data. I'm going to go show that the police are biased. Finally, people are going to like me. And my grandmother's going to go, you showed that the police don't like black people. Really? What are you doing up there? I had it all laid out. He would just download police data and not understand more about the police. He says, I wonder what the police are maximizing. Dawned on me in that moment. I didn't know, nor did I think I cared. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go figure out what police maximize. So I set up ride-alongs in Camden, Philadelphia, Houston, some places in Massachusetts to ride along with the police. I just didn't like police. They came, they took half my family away. Granted, they were selling a lot of drugs, but again, not the greatest customer service. So I was biased against the police. It's obvious. I went, and I don't think I've received a better education since my grandmother taught me to read. It's a hard job. And I know that sounds obvious sitting on a stage. It's a really hard job. After 4 hours, everyone looked like a criminal to me. They were like, you could never be a cop. Because I was like, hey, let's pull over. That kid's got a basketball. I don't like it. Get a call for a potential overdose in a row house. It's an abandoned building. We bust in. Person dies within 6 feet of me. And it shook me up a little bit. And so I looked at the guys I was with and I said, yo, how about beers on me? And they said, what do you mean beers are on you? I said, I don't know how to say it. Do you want me to speak in Greek? I mean, I don't know. It's beers are on me. We should leave here. Let the paramedics take over. We should go. And they said, we got to go back to work. And I said, but we just saw somebody die. And the police chief overheard me, and he was incredulous. He says, Roland, if I gave everybody a break every time someone died, no one would cover the shifts. And I was like, wow, it is a hard job. And so through these experiences, long story short, I collected a lot of data, and those experiences helped me understand what types of data to collect. We collected millions of observations on everyday use of force that wasn't lethal. We collected thousands of observations on lethal force. And the key question, I alluded to it earlier in a bit of a joke, but the key question is not just this arbitrary, silly snapshots that some journalists, not named Barry, do a lot, which is black people are 13% of the population and they are 50% of the police shootings. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know what that has to do with the question, right? And it was in this moment in 2016 that I realized people lose their minds when they don't like the result. So what my paper shows, we saw some bias in the low-level uses of force, every day pushing up against cars and things like that. People seem to like that result, but we didn't find any racial bias in police shootings. Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it. A little-known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took to do this over nearly a year. When I found this surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure. They came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose. Former paper published the thing, published a report about it, and it was a 104-page dense academic economics paper with a 150-page appendix. It was posted for 4 minutes. When I got my first email, this is full of shit, doesn't make any sense. And I wrote back, how'd you read it that fast? That's amazing. You are a genius. People lost their minds. I mean, it was like colleagues of mine were going, well, I don't believe these results. He's using regressions. I'm like, well, what the hell else we've been using? I mean, we've been using them for ever. That's what you use. And I had colleagues take me into to the side and say, don't publish this. You'll ruin your career. I said, what are you talking about? I said, what's wrong with it? Do you believe the first part? Yes. Do you believe the second part? Well, the issue is they just don't fit together. We like the first one, but you should publish the second one another time. I said, let me ask this. If the second part about the police shootings, this is a literal conversation. I said to them, if the second part showed bias, do you think I should publish it then? And they say, yeah, then it would make sense. And I said, I guarantee you I'll publish it. We'll see what happens.
If we humanize the badge, which is what I know a lot of people want to do, then we have to acknowledge that you're humanizing it from something, right? I want police to be raised to a standard that they can almost never reach, right? I want a level of excellence that is unheard of. But then again, too, that is what I expect from professional athletes, Olympic athletes, professional musicians, anything where you have a profession, you are perfecting your staff, your skill set. You are becoming a master. You are mastering your skill set. And I would like to see that become more in law enforcement, firearms proficiency, laws, knowing what they're doing, X, Y, and Z, traffic stops, interactions, everything that the job is all about. So there's a humanizing factor that we want. I think that leaves too much leeway for error, and then we accept that error as the reality of who they are. You take that coin and you flip it then onto the public. And this is black, right? We're going to be talking about black culture with police. People don't want to hear that the numbers is not 13% of the population commits 53% of the violent crimes or makes up 50% of the police shootings. The actuality is that it's more along lines of 6 and from within 6, because you have to divide that by male and female, and it's mostly males. So it's a much more saturated number when you think about it, which should be absolutely terrifying to people. You have a much lower percentage committing a higher rate of violence, but that's culture, and we have to humanize them, and we have to start asking why. And there needs to be studies, but there won't be studies, right? No matter how many times people want to talk about the economy and how it affects criminality, broken school systems, no fathers in the homes, all of this. We've talked about how that there's been certain IQ tests that have been done, and certain cultures that have an 80% or an 80 score for an IQ test as their standard, showing that there is a massive a regression in fundamental knowledge and application to function in society. So we're humanizing people. If you're going to humanize people for the good, then you have to acknowledge the evil and the bad. Now, I want to see where this video is a year from now. I want to hold on to it. I want to catalog it. I want to look at the comments that come in. And a year from now, I want to see where public opinion is, because we're going to play an extremely disturbing video. And I'm going to ask you to share it, because the algorithm will not put this out because of the nature of this video. It's going around today. I wanted to cover this. It's mind-blowing, and there's no point in me talking about it. Well, these cops need to go to jail. These cops need to... It's the same rhetoric garbage you're going to hear out of my mouth all the time. There has to be something else going on. Now, I have had a thought over the last several years that the public and the police, more along the lines of the police supporter public, the public that winds up supporting law and order, doesn't really commit crimes that much, and sees themselves as the model citizen. I believe that they have been purposely put in a pressure cooker to build up more division between us and whoever, criminality, and the criminality is going to be open to interpretation, because sometimes it's subjective upon what they do, by the powers that be, specifically liberal Democrat judges, states and district attorneys, those who are responsible for allowing recidivism to go on, to pit into culture wars nonstop. I want to talk about a human side of the badge that no one wants to talk about, but again, we need to, because if we don't talk about it, we don't solve the problem. You notice with the black culture and the black community and the aforementioned 53% of the violence, you will never hear about what causes the violence from within that culture, the social issues, the nurture and nature issues, and that which can be probably fixed if we all just gave a shit and focused on it. And we're going to talk about the same thing with law enforcement and what they're doing and why it is a necessity to discuss this. Remember, when I talk about these issues, I'm bringing the conversations to light. There are smarter men out there who could solve these problems. I can't. There are people with a bigger voice out there who could solve these problems. I don't have the reach yet. And when we do, then trust me, I'll be firing on all 16 cylinders or whatever the hell I'm going to have in my engine going forward like crazy. But for right now, we do need help. It's going to take a culture and a community of changing law enforcement and demanding the standards and change that we want. This is just released. New York Attorney General releases body cam footage of the brutal beating of Robert Brooks. The title should be changed to the brutal murder of Robert Brooks. I know nothing on this other than what this is. Now, remember, this is correctional officers. I do not know if corrections has a different use of force standard. I don't know. I'm going to operate on, we'll go objectively reasonableness. And as a police officer, would I see the use of force they are applying in somebody who's in custody? I don't know the status of what he was. I don't know if he was pretrial. I don't know if he was arrested and he was in jail, not prison. I don't know if he was convicted. I do not know. I don't know what happens to your status of rights when you are convicted. I was never corrections. I don't have that that understanding. I don't know if corrections is allowed to use a higher level of force on convicted felons and what. I just don't know. So I'm going to be looking at this as objectively reasonable through the eyes of a police officer and as a human being trying to apply grace and decency to a situation, even a shitbag criminal that's on the street, right? So I'm going to assume, just like you, because this video has been making the rounds, I want to see it the exact same way you do, that this was somebody who's in custody. They were in the care of law enforcement, and use of force was needed to be applied by law enforcement. And let's take a look at this together to see what this was. I do not believe there's audio to this, but we're going to watch it. Robert Brooks, December 9th, 2024. Sergeant Glenn Trombley. Okay. What did that say? That said, video redacted according to OAG policy. Okay. This is 9:21 at night, so 21 hours. This is clearly a correctional facility. There's somebody in custody. If he's outside, I'm assuming it's transport. This looks like it's corrections, not police, because you do not see a squad car, Sally Port there. Normally when we dropped off prisoners, you had to go into Sally Port. You leave them in the back, come out, you empty your entire weapon system into the lockup, your pistol, your magazines, knives, batons, OC, you locked it all, taser, everything got locked up. And then you were stuck in a fishbowl with the inmate or whoever else, sometimes 15, 20 of them, until you got buzzed into the other room and you were completely unarmed. Okay, they're walking him to a facility. This looks like it lasts. Oh, it's another 5 seconds. We'll just take that on there. No audio would. I will say this. Normally, the departments have the body camera footage at a constant rate of like 60 seconds or 30 seconds, buffering, constantly switching over until you hit the button, and then it starts recording audio, but it saves the previous 60 or 30 seconds before and then adds that on to the rest of the film. When I was with my department, we had WatchGuard body cameras, and I don't know what body cameras these are on. They had a feature that was called Record after the fact. And if the department said it that way, it didn't matter if it was in sleep mode or if it was on or off. It constantly recorded video only in 7-minute and 1-second files. So if I worked a 12-hour shift that day and I never activated my body camera at all, my body camera would still have my entire 12-hour shift recorded. Video only, broken down into 7-minute and 1-second files. So that was a feature that WatchGuard body camera had on. That's why this may be a little bit longer than 60 seconds. All right, so let's take a look. We have medical bay. 1, 2. Oh, those are not WatchGuards. He's cuffed because of the way they brought him out, and he's got his hands behind his back. All right, I think these are going to be 30-second. I think these are going to be 30-second body camera clips that were stored, and then they're going to be put together as evidence. This may be, I'm not quite sure. Keep in mind, remember use of force, and I can't stress this enough, which is why I'm curious to see where this video will be a year ago. It doesn't matter. If this is for law enforcement, for street cops, if this man just murdered an entire family, raped the fucking, a cat, and set the house on fire, once he's in custody, no matter how bad they're feeling a certain type of way, they can't do anything about it. That's how our country works. That's why we're the greatest nation on the planet. Even the biggest shitbag criminals on the planet are afforded due process, not punishment by your street cops, not punishment by your correctional facility, your correctional officers. That's the greatest and the worst part of this country. That's what you gave up as citizens when you decided to sit there and just go soft. And it used to be it takes a village to raise somebody. We don't even do that anymore. And now you call each other or the police on each other if you give somebody the finger, while there's snow blowing their driveway, you're a bunch of pussies. So now we expect our law enforcement to do the dirty work of punishment, which is the pressure that I'm going to talk about, humanizing the badge in a second. So keep that in mind. The cuffs are on. Cuffs are on. Can you use force on a handcuffed subject? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But to the degree of it really needs to fall within what's objectively reasonable. All right, so a struggle comes on. I saw a boot. I don't know what they're trying to do with it. I saw 2 strikes being thrown. Strikes are stunning techniques. They're used to change the state of somebody. All right, that's a new technique. I've never seen that used before. Cop uses his whole foot to push him up on a bed with a gurney. Another cop took a punch. More strikes. I mean, those are the major muscle groups: glutes, hamstrings. I mean, in the application of those, I don't really have an issue with that. Now he's doing sternum rubs, it looks like, to see if the guy's conscious or not. Sternum rubs are where they take your knuckles and they dig them into your sternum. And most people, if they're faking or they're passed out, it's almost like the smelling salt effect. They're gonna go whoa, because it's such a painful tactic to use to get them to respond just to stimulus. So far from this angle, there's some. I don't like seeing a handcuffed subject struck. I just don't. If somebody spits at you, I mean, I get it. But you know what? If they got hepatitis C, well, they could. I mean, I get it. after the shit is done, it's like, what are you hitting them for? What are you trying to attain? If you're going to put them in a chair with their straps all over the place, I mean, go ahead and do that. I think that in certain circumstances, taser, drive stun is acceptable. I think that control tactics are definitely acceptable for handcuffed subjects. I think that pepper spray is acceptable for handcuffed subjects. I don't necessarily think that strikes are acceptable for handcuffed subjects unless they're biting. If they're biting your face, there's another hit. If they're biting your face, let's see if that's again. There's a hit. Okay, so he hits him right in the torso. Looks like. Yeah, if he's biting your face and you got to get him off and change his state, then yeah, you crack him as hard as you need to. Yeah, this has got to be a similar setting because this is the same angle from the same body camera from this correctional. Yeah, I'm assuming it's a correctional officer. So we're seeing the same thing without interruption. Yeah, of course, everybody just standing around. Guy could be the biggest. He could be the biggest human piece of shit on the planet. That's not how this country works. Okay, this is another officer's angle now. I don't know if they still have him in cuffs. I don't know how they have his arms up like that. From what I saw, I don't know if it doesn't look like they have his hands cuffed. They could have been released at this point. Maybe his hands weren't cuffed to begin with. They're just behind his back, but he maintained his hands behind his back the entire time, which would be extremely hard to do in a fight or flight circumstance. So if they uncuffed him and then they put him up there because they're going to change him out of a uniform or something, perhaps, I don't know. Otherwise, if he still isn't like cuffs, he's got two broken shoulders. Now he's back on the gurney with no pants on. Robert Brooks, Correctional Officer Michael Long. Video redacted. Okay. I guess this is this initial intake. At this point, if it's like this, several different reasons: combative, 100% non-compliant. This is about as much hogtied as you're going to be able to do. It's a correctional facility. I'm surprised they don't use the chair. The chair is when you put them in there and their quads get strapped down, ankles get strapped down, wrists get strapped down, and then they have the head gets strapped down and a chest harness on there. So you're really not going to go anywhere, and it's a great position for somebody just to sit. And yeah, they're not going to have any movement whatsoever. But to get somebody in a chair too, sometimes it does require. I got decked by a woman we put in a chair, and I did not have a good enough grip on her right hand. She pulled it loose and she socked me right in the jaw, and I went, painful lesson. No, I didn't hit her back. No, I didn't pepper spray her. It's one arm off of a 120-pound woman that I just wasn't in control over, so she wasn't a threat or a danger. It was just my stupidity. In this, yeah, too, I mean, you really look at, you're carrying somebody like this, dude. I'm not going to lie. It's a painful position. It's tactically, I would be worried about their shoulders breaking. Is what it is. This is punishment. I understand it. I get it. I don't like it. You know, before the comments go, you don't know these animals these people work with every day. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I understand that. And this goes back to them having the expectation to raise themselves to the highest standard possible because of the evil they are working with every single day. This is why the job of a cop is the hardest of all, because the expectations we should have of them should be superior to every other profession on the planet. Okay, so none of this is body activated, body activated camera, activated body camera footage. Excuse me. It's all the buffering, the 30, 60 seconds, but it could be longer, like ours was. Got him by okay. Here's this. You can see him. He gets pulled up right by his neck. You watch this. Gets lifted up by his neck. And then this cop hits him, or this correctional officer hits him with his shoe right in the stomach. He's not kicking. He's not flailing. He's not spitting. He's not biting. Okay, here's the boot and the shoving up there. This is somebody who lost their patience. Let's look at this again. Now, when it comes to deadly force, all bets are off. If this guy had a knife, had a gun, I don't know, whatever it is, and he was murdering somebody, yeah, you could kick him in the teeth and shove your fist right down his throat, grab his spine and rip it out. I don't care what you do. Take your big stainless steel heavy-duty clipboard that you keep all your reports in and just take the corner of it, shove it right in his eye and kill him. I don't care. That's deadly force application. This is not. Let's see if there's a different angle now. The question that I pose to people is, if we're going to look at humanizing the badge, right? We're humanizing the badge and we want to give these men and women the pass for the tough job they have, then we have to acknowledge how many of them are frustrated nonstop at the lack of prosecution, the lack of accountability, and the recidivism that is on their street all day long. Nothing's getting done with it. They see these people being released on the street all the time. They see the lootings and the burnings and the store owners that are beaten when a criminal is beaten by the police, and that's how the black community responds. And you have this compulsive human innate bias hatred that is being conditioned and swollen within you on purpose by the state's attorney and the attorney general and the judges who do nothing to keep these people accountable. And then all of a sudden you refuse to admit to yourself or the public that when you deal with these people that you see on a daily basis that nothing's ever getting done with, and you have such a swelling contemptible hatred in there, you refuse to admit that to you, they're nothing more than a bunch of savage animal niggers, and you want to see something done to them, so you're going to do it. This is the question we have to start asking ourselves of the humanizing the badge movement that I'm fucking sick that we don't acknowledge. You want to say these are righteous men and women who are going on your street and they're just trying to get home, then you have to acknowledge on the flip side of this coin that there is also that culture that they hate people. You might have a study done by a black man that buys culture of law enforcement some time. That study is almost 10 years old. It may have bought them 10 years, 8, 9 years now, right? So now you have the cops over the last 9 years that have said, see, we don't target blacks. We don't use unnecessary force against them. We don't X, Y, and Z. But notice he also said it was the shootings that was proven to be false and inaccurate according to what the media and the public thinks, but it wasn't the day-to-day use of force. This would be considered day-to-day use of force of which he saw bias. At what point Do we start acknowledging that these cops have been just a pressure cooker for God knows how long, nothing's going to get done, and their personal hatred, bias, judgment, emotions bleed through into these actions? I've said it a million times. To have a person commit crimes of the foulest nature, rape, murder, some of these things that we see people are just like, this is insane. How could this happen? You know, you all want to criticize George Floyd for taking a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach, and he was justly given the use of force that you think that he deserved, right? I always want to know, what was it? What drug, what alcohol, what mind altering, or what soul repressing event changed that human being into a fucking monster that gave them a pass in their morality in their head to leverage that type of behavior on another human being? I think that same question needs to be asked to cops. What changed you? What man in their right mind knows we are being recorded 24/7? All these people who are in this room with us, somebody's going to say something. It doesn't matter who. What man still picks his boot up, jams it in the ribs of a very small black man, it looks like, the guy's string bean, and to shove him up on a gurney? What man picks him up by his throat? These are the talking through the teeth shit that your father did when he was mad at you, right? Didn't want to beat you, so what did he do? Get your ass upstairs. That type of stuff where your parents were so angry, but if your father could haul off on you in front of your mother and she wouldn't wind up pulling him off, you'd have the shit beat out of you, right? This is what they're doing. This is no one's coming to save you. We can get away with this. What mentality, what is the brain space and the head space? We need to ask this. Where are these correctional officers and cops who do this? Where is their mind to go, I can do this. I'm going to do this. I talk all the time about the 6% of the black population that's committing 53% of the crimes, the violence in America, and their lack of impulse control. Lack of impulse control. You couldn't get me around a group of black teens in the city because the lack of impulse control, I'd probably be beaten, my iPhone be stolen, whatever it is, right? Well, why are we not talking about the lack of impulse control when it comes down to the men and women you want to humanize the badge for, because they're working in such a shit job and we have to humanize them and we have to be there for them and back them because they're still human beings. If they're still human beings, you have to sit there and accept the fact that they're evil as well too, because otherwise, what are you humanizing them from? What are you protecting them from? This is vile. This is pure evil. This is intent. If we are looking at this, this is criminal. This is murder. What are they shoving in his mouth right now? Shoving in his mouth and beating him. This just gets worse and worse. Chokehold, handcuffed subject, sticking something in his face, down his throat, and then beating him. Punching him in the groin, punching him in the leg. Others standing around. They've been desensitizing to seeing these people as nothing more than fucking... I don't have a word. I don't have a word. They're not even human. We talk about serial killers starting off on cats and dogs and little bunnies in the backyard. These are grown men who have no problem beating a handcuffed man who's not even allowed dignity by them. I'll let you form your own judgment, but my question still stands. Why are we humanizing men and women from a profession that we should be demanding their fullest and highest levels of expectation and performance every single day with no excuses whatsoever? Why are we giving them passes, and why are we not acknowledging their evil? Why is it you only want to do it to the criminals? Why? It's something you have to ask and answer. It's the same answer. There needs to be criminal prosecution. I think that the death penalty needs to be given to every single person in this room. Every single person. If I had this is one of those scenarios that I would have no problem with an armed American walking in and putting a bullet in every single head of every man in this room that was not in handcuffs. I would. And I do not know if this is politically purposeful. I don't know if this is a false flag. I don't know if these are actors. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. No person in their right mind would do this in 2025, which is just days away, knowing they're being recorded all the time in the most volatile election cycle, post-election cycle in the history of the world, where nonstop racism is just leveraged everywhere for political and social division. This can't be real. This can't be real. I want to see where this is next year. I want to see how many people crawl out of the woodwork and vilify this today, but then next year they all go, oh, he had fentanyl in his system. Well, it turns out he murdered a family of 3 and raped a 1-year-old. Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and that's the level of expectation you have to have from these men who say they swear an oath to the Constitution. It doesn't matter. You want to change that? Then you need to go to your politicians and say, we need to change things, and we need to have our cops the same as Germany. You don't like what we say? I'm going to give you a boot right to the fucking chest and kick you right in the middle of the street and then butt you with my rifle. Right in the head. Change it. You do that, I'll support that. I'll start doing video content on that and defending that. Again, we just got out of George Floyd, where Derek Chauvin tortured him. He didn't kill him. It was the fentanyl in his system. Derek Chauvin tortured him for 9 minutes. These cops, they're lynching a black man. There's no way around it. None. When New York burns, they deserve it. They deserve it. Every cop in America, or especially in New York, should be going to these people's homes, and they should be ripping them out. They should be finding out who they are, and there should be no-knock raid warrants. Don't even fuck the warrants. Don't even wait for a judge. You have all the probable cause you want. Go in, do it, rip them out of their homes. And I think there needs to be public executions in the street. Until this happens, nothing will change in law enforcement. And at what point do you men who wear the badge not fucking understand what you are doing to America? You earn and deserve the hatred that is going your way. You've ruined this profession. There's nothing about it that has any integrity. And every day you have more people saying, oh, it's just a few bad apples. It's everything. It's the entire system. It is lost. And until the people start stepping up, until the people start focusing their views on these men and women who in blue, we need to get rid of female cops. And then we need to start eradicating everything else. And again, these conversations need to be had. And I'm praying that smarter men than me step up to the plate and implement the changes that need to be made. This is pure evil. This is evil. It's satanic. And it is never going to stop in America until we stop it. And sadly, it's not surprising at all.